Okay, well, welcome everybody. It's so exciting to see you guys join us again today. I love to see just the great smiles and our growing population. If you'll notice here on the screen, this is kind of how we always like to start our session with education is learning what you didn't even know you didn't know. So a huge thank you to our partners, Idaho Department of Health and Welfare and Saint Alphonsus Memory Center. One thing that we've done as part of this is that we know sometimes you might not be able to join us for a particular session, but we still want you to have the opportunity to be able to benefit from it. Or I think there's just such amazing information in these sessions. It's really awesome to have the opportunity to go back and re-listen to them. So there's two different things you'll see up here on the screen. The first one is a QR code. If that's what just feels really easy for you, you can easily go ahead, put your camera up to that, scan that QR code, and that will directly take you to the YouTube page where you can see all of the videos that have been recorded through Hope. Or if a website is a little bit better, just feels a little bit more comfortable for you, you can also put this website in. You can take a picture of it here. I always try to include it in our team calls as well, and go directly to that website. So just wanted to know there's lots of options to go back and see things that we have shared before. We are pleasure to be joined today by Dr. Jeremy Crowfoot. So just to let you guys know, this presentation will be recorded, so I'm going to ask that you go ahead and mute your lines. If you have any issues with that, I'll go ahead and mute you just so we don't have a lot of feedback as part of that. The presentation will be about 20 or 30 minutes and then opportunity for you to ask questions, and I'll make sure that I'm manning that chat line. Just to be able to answer anything for you. And then as always, we love to hear your feedback. So if there are other presenters that you want to be hearing from, other topics, things that you want to bring forth, or ways that we can make this session more meaningful and valuable to you, please let us know. We definitely want to hear that. So I'm going to give Jeremy just the moment to go ahead and share his screen so he can pull up his slides. And then, perfect. And then Jeremy, I will let you take it over from there.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Jeremy, and for the last 8.5 years, I have worked for the St. Alphonsus Geriatrics Clinic and our Palliative Care Clinic, and now also our Memory Center as the pharmacist here. So I meet with everyone. We review all the medications. My job is to look at how the medications are affecting the patient and trying to help them get on a safer regimen. So throughout that time, I have come across there's always medications for, memory, also all the other disease states that accumulate as you get older, but also I get asked a lot of questions about supplements. So that's going to be the main focus of today. So we're going to do a little bit of background. We're going to talk about a lot of different supplements. Some of them I'm going to go through pretty quick because I wanted to cover all the ones that I see commonly, but there's not a lot of information on some of them, so we can go through those a little bit faster. And then there'll be a few conclusions at the end. So a few different, little bit of basic information. So the supplements I'm focusing on are those that are used for the prevention of or treatment of dementia. In general, they are often referred to as nootropics, kind of a fun word to say. And just a quick summary, there is a lot of them. So part of the reason why I get asked this a lot, like, why are there so many different supplements? And I think it's due to the fact that we don't have a lot of good medications, prescribed FDA-approved medications to treat dementia. But there's a huge desire to want to do everything you can to help treat it. And so there's been a lot of things that are not FDA approved that have sprung up to help satisfy that demand. It's a simple, I think, supply and demand kind of thing. Let's see. There's the best kind of information that I could gather on how many people and who are using these supplements is from the AARP. They commissioned a study in 2019. They also had a follow-up study the next year, just to see who's taking them, why are they taking them, what's going on here. And so of all adults 50 years and older, 21% of them take a vitamin or dietary supplement for brain health. And the primary reason was to improve memory, but there's a lot of concern, am I going to get dementia? How do I prevent dementia? Things like that. So in 2016, this is the most recent data that I could find. The brain health supplements globally was at $3 billion annually. And it was predicted by 2023, which of course is 2 years past now, to be $5.8 billion. So this is a giant market and getting bigger and bigger every year. Just so everybody knows, the FDA has very little authority over supplements. For pharmaceutical, the FDA, for pharmaceutical to be FDA approved, it has to be passed through quite a rigorous process, including multiple studies, placebo-controlled trials, and peer-reviewed publications. Dietary supplements are introduced into the market through very little regulation. In general, dietary supplements are not considered medications and therefore are not subjected to the same kind of testing and scrutiny that happens with the prescribed medications. The health claims of dietary supplement manufacturers are generally not reviewed or approved by any sort of agency. And so while both the FDA and the FTC require dietary supplement companies to have scientific support for claims, so if they're going to say more than just for brain health, or they're going to say improves cognition or does anything else like that, they have to have scientific evidence that shows that. So while they have those kind of requirements, neither agency really requires any sort of pre-market approval of those supplement claims. The FDA, let's see, between the years of 2007 and 2016, the FDA found more than 700 dietary supplements containing prescription drugs, including steroids, antidepressants, sildenafil. This is not specific to brain health ones, but it just kind of shows the lack of regulation that occurs in this realm. And then in 2018, the Governmental Accountability Office published reports on 3 products they tested that were specific for memory. They wouldn't state which 3 those were. But the 3 supplements that were selected were from a list of highly advertised products in the United States. None of the 3 labels accurately reflected what was in the pills. One contained none of the products stated. One contained less than the quantity amount in the label, and the third contained more than the quantity stated. From another study in 2020, they specifically looked at brain health supplements. They went and grabbed 12 different products that were out on the market. They found that 8 of them had at least one ingredient that was not on the label, and 10 of them had one ingredient, they had at least one ingredient listed on the label that was not even identified through their chemical analysis. And then in 10 of them, they found one ingredient that was not even listed on the label to be in it that probably should have been listed. So in summary, it's kind of a buyer beware kind of thing. No one's double checking. I did put in the upper right-hand corner that USP logo. USP is an independent lab that companies that feel like they have a high quality product, that some of them will submit to USP, and if USP approves and says, yes, what you say is in here, we agree, they'll allow them to put that symbol on it, and that's kind of a symbol of reassurance. But if you go to like the supplement aisle at the supermarket or pharmacy, you won't see very many of them actually submit to this USP. So it's kind of you just have to be cautious and do the best you can. Okay, we're going to start talking about supplements, but I just want to put a disclaimer in here. If you're thinking about starting a supplement, we recommend you talk to a healthcare professional first. All right, much of the information I'm going to present in this is from a publication in 2019 commissioned by AARP, and it's through the Global Council on Brain Health, or GCBH, and it's an independent collaborative of scientists, health professionals, scholars, and policy experts, and they were tasked with reviewing just tons of information and kind of coming up with a conclusion as to whether or not, coming up with conclusions. So starting with multivitamins. So vitamins in general are the most common dietary supplements. Their randomized trials have mixed results, with most not identifying any benefits. As of 2019, the GCBH decided, or they declared, only those who do not have a balanced diet and those with certain health conditions may benefit from a multivitamin. Just a couple years ago, there was a great big study that showed, oh, multivitamins can reduce the risk of dementia, and it had been the biggest study to date. And then it wasn't more than 2 months later, an even bigger study came out, and they said, well, we don't see any benefit whatsoever. So I don't discourage people if they want to take multivitamins, but in general, I'm not pushing multivitamins unless I have concern for like significant weight loss or poor nutrition or something like that. B vitamins. There's a lot of people who are concerned for their memory and they go on B vitamins. The most common B vitamins are B6, B9, and B12. So we're going to talk about each one of those specifically. B12 seems to be the most common one that gets supplemented. And actually deficiency is not that uncommon, especially as you get older. And there's some medications that a lot of people end up on that can actually decrease your B12 levels. So I have listed a couple of the different symptoms. The B vitamins in general are used for making cells and keeping cells healthy, so that's important with the nervous system. And so oftentimes what we do, if we don't know what the B12 level is, they don't want to get it checked, we'll say, okay, you can take B12 and take 500 or 1,000 micrograms every day. But for most of our patients, if we're concerned about their memory or something like that, we'll check a B12 level. On most labs, B12 is not registered as low unless it's less than 190. In our clinic, we recommend targeting at least 400. The reason for that is just kind of give us a buffer of safe zone. The B12 level actually throughout the day, depending on when you last had a meal or took your B vitamin or something like that, can go up and down quite a bit. So targeting a little bit lower threshold give us a bit of a buffer to make sure that we're not missing someone who is chronically low. B9 deficiency is rare in the US. It can occur with certain medications, especially seizure medications and some chemotherapy, so that's not real common. In all, when they reviewed the data, GCBH recommended that folic acid supplements with or without B vitamins have not been found to improve cognition or prevent dementia or Alzheimer's disease, but more research is needed. So they don't say it's useless, but they're not real excited about it either. Usually, if people want to take B12 and folate, I encourage them to take like a vitamin B complex or something like that. If you do have a medicine that causes folate deficiency, or you are known to have a vitamin B12 deficiency, I would recommend taking each one individually, like a folic acid and a B12, because sometimes those vitamin B complexes, they don't have enough of each of those individual ingredients. B6 deficiency is uncommon. It can happen in those who especially have like Crohn's disease or inflammatory disease in their bowel and they don't absorb as much B6. But some people, they swear by taking B6 supplements, but there is some evidence to suggest that doses higher than 500 milligrams per day can contribute to neuropathy. So I wouldn't go crazy with supplementing the B6. I don't think that's a strong association, but why take a bunch of something if you just don't need it? So in general, I don't recommend people start a B6 supplement unless we have concerns for them being low or deficient. I believe it has low concern for harms or side effects, but I also believe it has very low possibility that it provides good benefit for everyone to just be taking. Moving on to another vitamin, this is vitamin D. It's essential for calcium support. In 2019, from that AARP Commission study, they found that of those 50 years and older, 46% were taking a vitamin D supplement, and nearly all of them were taking it for bone health. But there has been a lot of other things that vitamin D has been promoted for, including cognition. But their recommendation was that although some but not all studies have been linked to low levels of vitamin D to memory problems and dementia, and a few small studies suggest that taking vitamin D can improve brain function, overall, there's not enough evidence to recommend empiric vitamin D supplementation for memory. That being said, if you're concerned about osteoporosis, a lot of our patients are on vitamin D for other reasons, so I don't have a huge problem with someone taking vitamin D, but I've had a lot of people taking very high vitamin D levels recently, and that can actually be risky for some people, and I don't recommend taking high vitamin D. So unless you know you're low in vitamin D, I don't usually recommend taking more than 2,000 units in a day. Sometimes that's not sufficient for some people, but until you know that it's not sufficient, I wouldn't go higher than that. You can find in the stores now like 10,000 unit tablets, and I would caution taking those every day because those can cause bigger problems. Vitamin E, sorry, is another interesting vitamin. So it's an essential vitamin typically found in vegetable oils. Deficiency is actually quite rare, but it's getting traction for treatment for dementia. So there was a trial with mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease, and they gave them 2,000 units of vitamin E every day, and their conclusion was that it slowed decline in ability to do activities of daily living. But they didn't find any change in cognitive abilities like memory or reasoning. Subsequent studies have tried to reproduce this, and they have not identified the same kind of benefit. So I caution people when they want to take vitamin E, just personally. Plus, too much vitamin E can actually be toxic. We know that doses greater than 800 units per day increases your risk for bleed. It has a higher risk for prostate cancer, and doses of vitamin E higher than 400 units per day increases mortality in those with chronic conditions like cardiovascular disease. One more thing to note is if you do decide to take vitamin E, due to the increased risk for bleed, there's certain drug interactions like with anticoagulants that will make you an even higher risk for bleed. And also, you should discontinue it 14 days before surgery. So it's not, I guess I agree with the conclusion from GCPH that although there is some evidence that vitamin E may slow the decline in performance of activities of daily living, there's insufficient evidence to say that vitamin E will maintain a person's ability to think and reason as they age. Okay, the next one. This one. Oh, this one. Okay, this is Prevagen. First of all, Prevagen is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. This is the biggest selling supplement right now for brain health. This is from 2021, and I know it's grown since then. Of Americans 50 years plus, 4% of them are taking Prevagen. That's approximately 983,000 people. And they did the math, and at $39.95 per day, or per month, which I know it's more than that now, they were bringing in $39 million estimated per month. Also, you're going to see even more of Prevagen. I just noticed this the other day, so I Googled it to look at what their partnerships are now. So now they're the primary sponsor for the U.S. Figure Skating Championships, the U.S. Track and Field, the U.S. Gymnastics, and they also have the primary sponsor for the Breeders' Cup horse race. So you're going to see Prevagen advertised everywhere now, as if they weren't already. But the main active ingredient in Prevagen is apoaquarin, and it's made from jellyfish. And the idea is that it helps protect neuronal cells from calcium-mediated toxicity and slows age-related decline in memory and cognition. Because apoaquarin is broken down in the gut, only amino acids and small proteins are absorbed into the body, and it is actually not possible for our body to reassemble this and actually make it work in our body. I'm already kind of showing my hand as to how I feel about this drug. But when they first came out with Prevagen, they had a manufacturer-funded study, and they claimed that it was published. It was published in their own journal from the manufacturer, and they emphasized that they could show that they improved cognition and function in older adults. They didn't have a placebo control group, so you couldn't really compare it to anything. So that's not really considered a real study. So then they ran a second study, and they did not show any difference whatsoever. So GCPH concluded that Prevagen lacked sufficient evidence for effectiveness. But it doesn't stop there. Then they got taken to court, and AARP even joined in a lawsuit in 2018, and they're like, you can't prove what you're saying, because if you look at the old packaging for Prevagen, it says reduces risk of dementia, helps improve cognition. It had a lot more bold statements on it. In the end, I don't remember if they settled or if it was actually a verdict against them, but they had to remove that kind of label on. So It doesn't have that label on their Prevagen bottles anymore. But basically, GCPH does not recommend taking this medication or this supplement for brain health. I also do not recommend it. I have low concerns that it's going to cause side effects. From one source, the most common side effects are dizziness, headache, and nausea, but I also don't think it's going to provide much benefit. The next one was not reviewed by GCPH, but I found it interesting because I've seen a lot of it lately. So this is astaxanthin. It's an antioxidant. What makes it cool is that it was a molecule that causes most red-colored sea creatures to look red. And it's actually an FDA-approved natural food coloring. But I couldn't really find any evidence that it's useful at all. So I have little concern for side effects, especially since it's a food coloring, but I also don't recommend it. I've seen this one a lot. So this is Bacopa monieri. So this is a perennial creeping herb native to wetland areas globally. The way that this works is actually very similar to probably the primary drug that we use for Alzheimer's dementia called donepezil. There's also rivastigmine and galantamine, but it's an acetylcholinesterase inhibitor. So the idea is that you can help increase the amount of acetylcholine at the neuronal junctions to help increase brain activity, but it also increases neuronal activity of acetylcholine everywhere in the body. And one of the main areas that we have acetylcholine receptors is in our gut. So the primary side effects are the same as donepezil. So you get increased stool frequency or abdominal cramping. So GI side effects seem to be the biggest side effect associated with this. This is also one that was not reviewed by GCPH. I've just seen it a lot lately, so I reviewed it. I don't recommend people take it. It doesn't have evidence that it helps improve cognition. I have moderate concerns for side effects, especially if it's causing GI illnesses. And I also believe that there's very low likelihood that it would provide benefits. The next one is caffeine. GCPH reviewed this one. They feel that it doesn't, although it can help short-term focus, it doesn't seem to provide good evidence for long-term health. And also caffeine in high doses, such as those found in some energy drinks, can contribute to insomnia, nervousness, headache, and even seizures. So regular high doses of or prolonged use of caffeine is not typically recommended due to just the way that it affects the body. If you want to take it daily as part of your coffee or something like that, or it's probably not a big deal, but I wouldn't go out of the way to try and make sure you increase your caffeine intake every day. Coenzyme Q10, it's a coenzyme used by the body to help convert food into energy. GCPH looked at some studies and they concluded that it does not convincingly have benefits for thinking, memory, or Alzheimer's protection. There is not enough evidence to recommend CoQ10 for protecting an aging brain. I agree with that. I don't think it has very high risks associated with side effects, but it also doesn't seem to have much evidence for benefits. Curcumin and turmeric. So curcumin is the active ingredient in turmeric. Turmeric is a plant related to ginger. It's a major spice in India and Asia. This one is probably the one that has the most interest in my mind. So a double-blind, placebo-controlled mild memory complaints. They gave them turmeric over 18 months and they demonstrated significant benefit. I will put in a caveat that the study was quite small, so it'd be nice to see this in a larger group. This was actually published in 2018, I believe, and I looked to see if there was anyone that's done a bigger study, and there's not one published yet. Couple things that I've noticed. Let's see. Let's go ahead over here. So GCPH said they're interested in it, but a larger replication study would be beneficial. At present, they don't think there's enough information or enough data to support its use. In my opinion, I agree. And I don't recommend people start taking turmeric. If a person wanted to, or if they're already taking it, I'm not going to tell them they need to stop or anything like that either. I have minimal concern for adverse effects, but I have noticed that the biggest side effect seems to be GI distress, upset stomach. I think it's just kind of hard on the system, especially when it's in like a compact capsule. It seems to be upset the stomach more likely. Flavonoids in cocoa. This includes polyphenols like resveratrol and quercetin. I've seen these a whole bunch recently. GCPH concluded at present there is not enough evidence to recommend taking this. There is a couple of small studies have shown that it might be beneficial for short periods of time, kind of similar, especially the cocoa, kind of similar to like the caffeine part, but there's not good evidence that chronic use can help prevent dementia or improve cognition. Ginkgo, this one I see a lot still. Study of over 3,000 people over 6 years couldn't find any definite or any benefit. So GCBH said they don't believe that there's any benefit and they don't recommend using it. Huperzine A, this is a naturally occurring substance. It has activities similar to the Bacopa monnieri that we talked about earlier. So it has acetylcholinesterase inhibitor activity similar to like Aricept. So you see similar side effects, a lot of GI side effects, things like that. So GCBH also found there's no evidence that it can help with the treatment of Alzheimer's disease or memory problems. I agree with that statement, and then I would also caution that regular use could cause GI effects. The next one is pretty. It's called lion's mane. This one has gotten a lot of, it seems like ever since 2000, this one has really blown up. I've seen a lot of places. It may stimulate brain growth of cells or growth of brain cells through compounds that are listed there. In mice genetically engineered to develop Alzheimer's disease, they saw a reduction in memory loss or prevent neuronal damage. There was a 2020 study, and I actually heard a neurologist talk about this one, and she was really excited about it. The lions made 1 gram every day for 49 weeks, significantly improved cognitive test scores compared with placebo. I pulled the data for it, and my biggest concern is that it was quite a small sample size. But besides that, at baseline, the average age of the control group was 3 years older than the baseline group. That's pretty big when you're talking 77 and 74 and you're looking at the onset of dementia and stuff like that at that time. Like it was statistically different. Another thing is when they did MRI scans at the beginning and later on. And what they found were that the MRI scans at the beginning, there was a statistical significant difference between some of the dimensions of the brains of the control group versus the treatment group. So I don't think it was well randomized, and I have doubts about the benefit of lion's mane, although there could be another study that comes out soon that shows benefit. This is another one I've seen a whole bunch recently. Lithium, it's a naturally occurring salt. In medicine, we use it for like bipolar treatment. For brain health, much lower doses are used. From my experience, the primary driver of this, there's been a lot of natural medicine doctors that have been recommending this, and so I've seen a lot of people come in on it. I will just say, just at the top, in general, we don't consider lithium to be beneficial for the brain. Lithium is an old drug, and it first gained traction when doctors identified that it seemed to slow the cognitive processes of an individual. In general, slowing down the cognitive process don't seem to help with cognition, but the evidence for its benefit could be real. So I'm going to discount at the beginning and then say it might be real. So the first signs that it could be beneficial were that people with bipolar disease seem to have a lower risk of dementia if they had received lithium at some point during treatment, which is kind of interesting, but that could also be that they received good care when they were younger. So it's hard to tell. And then some of the later evidence for benefits, which isn't really evidence for benefit, but suggestions of benefit are low-dose lithium, specifically like if it's coming up from groundwater in certain populations, they saw lower doses of dementia in that compared with other study groups. And so there might be something protective about lithium, but it's really very, there's not a good prospective study that's been done on this. Most of them are very small, and it's a lot of epidemiological studies where they're looking at, well, this group has more lithium in their water. What do we think about this or that? And so I'm not encouraging people to go out and take lithium. I don't think someone should get prescription lithium to help with their brain. If they want to take low-dose lithium, it's not the worst thing in the world, but I wouldn't encourage it, but I also don't expect any side effects. I'm going to go through a couple of these ones real fast. Medium chain triglycerides have gained a lot of traction recently, coconut oil. They don't have good evidence for benefit yet. There might be other health benefits that come from it, but for brain health, it's not quite there yet. Melatonin, GCBH emphasizes that good sleep is essential for good brain health. But taking melatonin specifically for brain health doesn't seem to have good evidence for benefit. If you are struggling to sleep, though, there is mild evidence that it can help with that fairly safely, especially compared to other sleep medications. So if you're struggling with sleep, melatonin might be useful. This one I've seen more often recently, especially from like infusion centers that want to give it to people, but there's no good evidence that this helps either. Fish oil just seems to pop up on all charts for everything, whether it's eye health, cardiovascular health, brain health. It could help with mood, is the summary of these slides here, but it doesn't seem to be protective for brain health. But if your mood is affecting your cognition, it might make sense to be taking some fish. But from all the studies, it looks like just consuming fish is almost as good as taking fish oil, and taking fish oil never seems to be better than eating fish. So if you're willing to eat fish, go ahead and eat your fish. This is the primary ingredient that's in Nariva. It's called phosphatidylserine. This is an interesting one because at one point the FDA did allow it to say that it reduced age-related decline. However, after several groups tried to replicate the studies that they had originally published, they couldn't find those kind of benefits. And so the FDA revoked their ability to say that any longer. GCBH does not recommend it, does not think that it has good evidence for benefit, but I see a lot of people still taking this one. So I'm sorry I went fast there. I tried to get all the information on the slides for everyone so that if you have your favorite supplement and you're wondering what I wrote about it, you can look at it there. I also recommend going to see the AARP thing from 2019 with GCBH. They have a really good summary, an executive summary slide. But after reviewing all the supplements, they basically said could not endorse any specific product or say that any of them is beneficial for dementia or brain health. They say the best way to protect your brain is from a healthy diet and good physical health. And they say scientific evidence does not seem to support the use of any supplement to slow, reverse, or stop cognitive decline or dementia. And they also they emphasize you could use that money that you're spending on supplements to adapt to healthier lifestyles like joining a gym, eating more healthy, different things like that, which is always kind of fun. So anyway, so that's the end of the presentation. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you.
That was
So
excellent.
let's take the slides off so that we can have everybody on the screen. Thanks, Jeremy.
Mm-hmm.
Lot of hard work to prepare these slides and go through the research. And thank you. Fantastic